And that time really is world-class, 4:27.
Well,
you can look at a world record of 4:16, but that's indoors at the Olympic Stadium in Moscow on boards.
Yeah.
And that's a wooden track, whereas we've got a concrete track here, and there's a big difference in times. Fully indoor, partly indoor, isn't it?
Well,
so if the Australians can get to within about 10 seconds of that here, that is a fantastic time.
Well, the World Championships this year were in Leicester, and that's on a similar size track. That's a little bit steeper, outdoor track, and that was 4:26 was the winning time. Was that right?
4:26, and that was actually on boards.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's on boards.
And it was a board track in Leicester. So anyway, it gives you an idea that the complex or the velodrome here is world standard.
Getting nervous again, doing the toe straps up tight.
Starting to sweat under the arms.
Blood actually. When they do the toe straps up that tight, the blood nearly stops in the toes.
After a full start, eventually they're underway, and this is the ride-off for the gold medal in the team's pursuit between New Zealand in picture and Australia. Australia, the fastest qualifiers last night, 3.6 seconds faster than New Zealand last night in qualifying, which would indicate the Australians are favoured here.
There's Michael Turter in front now, the Tasmanian.
New Zealand a fraction in front after the first lap.
That was a very fast start. There was actually a half a second faster than their record last night, the first lap. So it's a fast start.
2 laps down, and the Australian crowd giving the Australian team's pursuit a really big bunk up.
Well, both teams, there's New Zealand looking very, very smooth, and they're 1 second up on the Commonwealth Games record at this stage, and there's nothing between both teams. There we are, 1400ths of a second. There goes Michael Turter. He's after his second gold medal, high on the bank, back into the slipstream.
But New Zealand doing particularly well and leading Australia by 0.24 of a second.
They're going to put their exactly spot on the schedule for the Commonwealth Games record. And New Zealand, they're putting pressure on Australia.
New Zealand have started fast. They've gone out to try and break the Australians' rhythm. If you noticed last night, the Australians were clockwork. The New Zealanders have gone out and tried to put pressure on them to break their rhythm. Whether it's going to succeed, we'll see.
About a quarter of a second between them, with the Kiwis in front. 7.5 laps to go of the 12-lap event.
Michael Turter high on the track. Both teams are looking very, very smooth. The crowd starting to cheer the Australians on.
Nothing in it. 9/100ths of a second with New Zealand still leading, and they're just about on the record schedule. Well, that changed by 2/100ths of a second in that half lap, and the New Zealanders, after jumping out at the start, have led all the way, but nothing in it.
Lord, 200ths of a second. New Zealand, they're looking very smooth also. Look at that beautiful change there from New Zealand, and they're not going down without a fight. They're really, this is terrific.
5.5 laps to go, and the Australians have hit the front.
Michael Grinder in front there. Kevin Nichols just having a glance at the opponents. 4400ths of a second difference.
And right on the record schedule.
New Zealand's third rider looks as if he's really fighting hard to hold the wheel. The Australians have hit the front. 3200ths of a second. There goes Kevin Nichols down the back straight there now. He's after gold.
Australia already with 2 gold medals at these games.
Come on.
And heading for a third here, but absolutely nothing in it.
1 second up on the Commonwealth Games record. New Zealand starting to look a bit shaky, but I'll tell you what, they're not going down without a fight. Australia's hit the front.
Oh, it's up to 0.7 of a second now.
3 laps to go.
Charlie Walsh, the Australian coach, telling them to hit their straps. 1 kilometre to go. Look at New Zealand.
And the margin over 1 second now. The New Zealanders who went out fast have burned themselves off, and one of their riders can't keep up with them. And so for the last 2 laps, New Zealand left with only 3 riders, and that's Murray Steele who's dropped off the pace.
Kevin Nichols just falling back onto the wheel now. Here comes Gary West in front.
Well, it's up to over 2 seconds now, and 1 second up on the record. It looks as though it's possibly a gold medal for Australia because they're still very strong and leading by over 2 seconds, and we could see another games record.
Michael Turner high on the track now. They're still 1 second up, and they're coming in to get the bell.
Coming up for the bell now. 1 lap or 333 metres to go for the Australians. And still 1 second up on the schedule to go inside last night's games record.
Look at Nichols pouring it on down the back straight.
The Australians really finishing on top of the New Zealanders. New Zealand started well, but Australia had come all over the top of them in the second half.
24,
excellent time by
25,
Australia.
yes!
Gold medal for
26.
Australia.
Beautiful there, looking back at the clock too. Look at it. Michael Turner. What a terrific effort by the Australian boys. Look, a standing ovation going down the back there. Michael Turner, hands in the air, my second gold medal, you beauty, and a new Commonwealth Games gold medal record, sorry.
And the time, 4:26.09, is exactly 1 second faster than their record of last night.
Well, here they come. Look at them, hands in the air. Gary West, look. All the Australians out in the centre, chucking their hands into the air. A world-class time, 4:26.
Kevin Nichols, a gold medalist 4 years ago, repeats the dose. And Michael Turner, a gold medalist from a couple of nights ago in the individual pursuit, wins his second gold medal of these games.
That's the third gold medal for Australia in the cycling.
Well, they've certainly had a great series. Jeez, that's terrific.
What I liked about that, it was the same as last night. They were so strong, and they didn't lose a man. Not one man sacrificed. They were all as strong as one another, and they just kept boring in.
Even when the New Zealanders put the pressure on, they did not, crack under pressure. They kept their rhythm, which is very important.
Well, that was their tactics, to go out early and try and break the Australians' rhythm. It's the only hope they had.
They were 3 seconds slower last night, but look, honestly, the Australians looked so smooth, and their changes were perfect.
Number 12 is Michael Turner. Number 3 is Michael Grenda. 6 Kevin Nichols and 14 Gary West as the triumphant Australians slowing down after a couple of victory laps in front of that huge temporary grandstand on the other side.
What a great feeling it must be for Michael Grenda, 20 years of age, all the way from Tasmania, and, he's got a big future ahead of him. His first big taste of international competition.
Well, the Grendas are a well-known cycling family down in Tassie there. The father, Ron, was a great cyclist.
And that time of 4:26.090 is less than 10 seconds outside that world record that we were talking about, set by Russia at the Moscow Olympic track. And to be less than 10 seconds behind the Russians on a track like that Olympic track is fantastic.
If these boys can stay together, this is what we've got to do now, is to keep them together, even though Kevin Nichols is, what, 32? So
Cut it out, Gordon. He's not that old.
Not as old as me.
He's about a young 27, about the same age as myself.
Time does fly. Anyway, what we've got to do is to keep them together, because when you've got a good team like this, you've got to keep them together because they know one another's habits, they know one another's strengths, and if we can keep them together for at least to the next Olympics in Los Angeles, we've got to show a gold medal with these boys for sure.
This has been the big problem in the past couple of years. They've changed the team so many times, and the Russians, the Germans, all the other international teams, they keep the same team and, train together like these fellas have done. Like I said, they train together for 12 to 16 weeks and, well, it's paid off tonight. A world-class time. They would have finished second at the World Championships with that time and, what a great effort. Oh, that time is unbelievable. Kevin Nichols, was a bit nervous before the start of tonight, and but he said that he was feeling a little bit stronger than last night, and he really put in a super turn.
He would be the most experienced track rider in our Commonwealth Games.
Well,
team.
he's the old fellow at 27, and he's third Commonwealth Games, and he's been to 2 Olympics. He's the most experienced, and you could tell by the changes in that he was coming back onto that wheel within inches tonight, and that's where experience.
That was a carbon copy from last night, wasn't it? There wasn't a change. They just lapped it out as
there's
though
all
they
the
were
Australians. Look,
they were going to work. They were lapping it out, not a moment's hesitation in their rhythm or anything. It was really good. That is real pros.
There's Michael Grinder there, just getting a pat on the back from the other fellows.
He's the last one remaining without the tracksuit on, Michael Grenda. Well, it's 3 gold medals to Australia in track cycling. Kenrick Tucker in the sprint, Michael Turter in the individual pursuit, and now the team's pursuit. 3 golds, another gold medal to be decided a little bit later on tonight in the 10-mile event. That will be held in about an hour's time. In the meantime, let's recap on some of the highlights that we've had in a magnificent day for Australia at the 12th Commonwealth Games and the 800 metres this afternoon at QE2. The medal presentation for the 4,000 metres team's pursuit. Another success for Australia at the Chandler Velodrome.
The winners of the gold medals for the 4,000 metres team's pursuit are Michael Grenda, Kevin Nichols, Michael Turner and Gary West representing Australia.
Sensational performance by the pursuit team of Australia. And there they are from the left, Turter, Grenda, Nichols and West. For Michael Turter there, he was the individual pursuit gold medalist and now his 2nd gold medal in team's pursuit. Michael Grenda, the first Tasmanian ever to win a cycling gold medal at a Commonwealth Games. Kevin Nichols, who won a gold 4 years ago in Edmonton and has repeated the dose here. And Gary West, an outstanding Australian pursuit team. 3rd gold for Australia in cycling at these games.
The winners of the silver medals for the 4,000 metres team's pursuit are Glenn Captain, Brian Fowler, Graham Miller and Murray Steele representing New Zealand.
New Zealand have had an outstanding Games Carnival. They only missed a medal in one event, the individual pursuit. They now have a gold, 2 silvers and 2 bronze medals. New Zealand's preparation for these games was excellent. They came over to Australia early and rode track events and also a number of road races prior to the games. They've been together a long time. They're a young team, and their performance here in Brisbane has probably been New Zealand's best ever performance in cycling at the Commonwealth Games.
The winners of the bronze medals for the 4,000 metres team's pursuit are Paul Curran, Anthony Mayer, Sean Wallace and Darryl Webster representing England.
And the English team performed very creditably indeed. Their time, 4:34.78 to win the bronze medal, was excellent indeed. Paul Curran, Sean Wallace, Darryl Webster and Anthony Mayer. Bronze medal in the team's pursuit for England. That's now 3 gold medals to Australia in cycling after Kenrick Tucker's exciting win in the sprint, Michael Turter in the individual pursuit, and Turter again, Michael Grenda, Kevin Nichols and Gary West in the team's pursuit. 10-mile scratch race. It's a straight final. They were due to ride heats last night to get a final field. There weren't enough starters, and so just the one race for the gold medal in the 10-mile scratch race. 11 countries represented and a field of 26. The major nations have got 3 riders. Australia represented by Gary Hammond, Kevin Nichols and Michael Turter. So it's been a big night for Nichols and Turter. They've already won gold in the team's pursuit just a short time ago. Canada in with 3. England with Paul Curran, Terry Tinsley and Sean Wallace. New Zealand have 3. Craig Adair, who won the time trial, Anthony Cuff and Graham Miller. "10 miles, or it's officially called 10 miles, that converts to 16 kilometres. It's 48 laps of this track. And surrounded by a couple of guys with the 10-mile experience, because Gary Sutton won a bronze medal in this event at Edmonton, and his brother Sean won the Shane won the silver medal, and Gordon Johnson went into the 1970 event in Edinburgh as a hot favourite and was beaten by the Canadian Jocelyn Lovell, who is still riding and competing at these games, but he's not in this event. And Lovell is the defending champion. He's won this twice in 1970, then after an 8-year break he won again at Edmonton, but he's not in the Canadian team for this race. In fact, Jocelyn Lovell, who was 6th in the time trial, hasn't been seen since.
No, he's hasn't had good form, even though the early part of his training down the track about 10 days ago, he looked as though he had good form, but I'm not quite sure what's happened to Jocelyn. He's kind of gone off form, and you never know. He's a quite temperamental sort of fellow, but I thought he would have been in this field trying to get 3 10-mile gold medals. I know I would be.
Number 61 there is David Weller, who was a bronze medalist at the Commonwealth Games in '78 and also at the Olympic Games in Moscow in 1980. Number 33 is Paul Curran of England, and he, about 45 minutes ago, took the bronze medal in the team's pursuit for England. Terry Tinsley, number 40, who could be one of the pre-race favourites. Gary Hammond, the Australian. This is his first ride at the Games. They have a rolling start, and it allows the handlers to get off the track, and they'll roll round, and the race starts after one more lap. So this is easily the biggest field that we've seen for any of the cycling events at these Games. We'll probably get a bigger one on Saturday morning for the road race. The Games record is held by Jocelyn Lovell. His winning time in Edmonton, 20 minutes, 5.81 seconds.
They've started now. The race is underway, and as you can see, they've come out of that tight formation, and they'll start to lap it out down the bottom of the track. The teams racing really comes to the fore in this sort of event. You can see the 2 New Zealanders high on the bank there, sitting behind one another. But what happens actually is that you've got 4 or 5 teams with 3 men in each team. And prior to the event here, they've probably had a bit of a chat and said, well, you're the best sprinter. If you get to the end of the race, I'll take you and see if we can win it. And most teams do have a good sprinter in their team.
And the Englishman at the head of the pack has decided to give them a bit of a break, and he's taken them out, and the Australian's going round the outside. Michael Turter trying to catch up to this breakaway Englishman.
Kevin Nichols, that is, and that's Paul Curran just going high on the bank.
As you can see, there's 1 Canadian out the front, there's 1 Englishman and 1 Australian. And what happens in these sort of races, if those 3 or 4 fellows get out there together, the boys at the back will block the other riders, and it's really hard to bring them back.
This is where we'll see all the action in the early part, especially, you know, the stronger boys are going to try to make the sprinters a lot tighter. They're all starting to bunch up again now. We'll see a few more attacks in a minute. There's Paul Curran in front now, the English rider, just swinging high on the track. Everybody sort of just looking at everybody, and bit of a squeeze there, yeah. David Weller underneath.
The first 5 mile, or half the distance, which will be 24 laps, this sort of thing, banking up and jumping away. Really what they're doing is just testing out who's got the strength and who's got the weaknesses in their teams. And as they get closer to the finish, that's if a decent break doesn't be, like 3 or 4 riders get away and get a half a lap, and the fellas defending, you'll see the teams getting together for the final dash to the line. And that last lap and a half, or the last 2 laps, it can be death-defying. There's some real funny things happen in that last lap that you could write books about, I can tell you.
That's Gary Hammond in front there with Michael Turner sitting in 2nd position.
Is it necessary for all 3 team members to ride alongside each other, or will they only work that out as we get closer, say, with 4 laps to go?
Around about 4 or 5, or probably even 7 laps to go, you'll see all the countries, they'll all form up. Like all the Australian boys will probably get together, the Canadians, and like Gordon explained earlier, you'll get probably one of the boys will be, they all put their heads together early and say, all right, well, Michael Turner, we're going to try to get you up to win this gold medal. So the last 3 or 4 laps is going to be very, very interesting.
What they normally do in the early part of the race is that they put their 3 men, right through the field. There might be one at the front, one in the middle, and one at the back. So if there is a jump away, at least one man in that team can cover that break. If they're all together and down the back and somebody goes off the front, like the Australians did in 1970, I remember it quite well, it takes you about 5 laps to get around, and the horses bolted, and then you just chase for 10 mile and come in 10th or 12th.
The speed really hasn't dropped at this stage. You know, even though they're bunched up, they're, you know, keeping it, or the speed is sort of still going, so there's no real breakaways at this stage.
This is a hard sort of speed because what they're doing is they're chopping and changing, and it actually breaks your leg, what we call breaks your rhythm. If they get into a nice rhythm and just lap it out, it's reasonably easy. But what happens here, they jump away and everybody's out of the saddle hurtling after somebody, and then they stop again. And the sprinters wouldn't be liking this at all, because the sprinters like a nice, slow ride, and when they come around to the finish, they can let 6 barrels go and hope they can win it.
Now, already we've had a lot of leaders, probably 20 leaders or something. Is it possible for somebody to bury himself in the field and never take on the making of the pace?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's possible.
The sprinters would probably do that.
You'll probably notice even there, up to date, there's mainly been all the strong pursuiters that have been in front. All the sprinters like Weller, he hasn't even been at the front yet, and just sort of tucking himself in there, keeping himself up the front, but...
The idea in this race, for tactics, if you are a sprinter and going to come with a big charge at the end, is to sit in the centre of the field. Try and stay in the middle of the field, because there you can cover it. There's a Northern Ireland boy jumping away there, followed by a Canadian, and with Peter Aldridge from Jamaica on the back.
That's Leonard Kirk taking them out.
And look, the front of the bunch, there's 2 Jamaicans blocking. The 2 green jumpers are Jamaicans. They've got 1 boy out the front. There goes... See the boys lapping it out there. The Canadians not really interested. They'll probably break off with that challenge, and here comes the Kiwis.
Well, those 3 with their little breakaway, it didn't last very long, because the New Zealander Graham Miller was keen to pick them up, and he goes to the front and now swings up the track.
There goes another Northern Ireland boy.
Well, no Australians up the front there at the moment.
Sorry, that's Zimbabwe. It's not Northern Ireland.
Only 2 Zimbabwe riders in it, Graham Cockerton and Gavin Young.
Sean Wallace, 2nd place getter in the individual pursuit out there. He's trying to put the pressure on all the sprinters early.
Now, if he gets away, it makes it interesting. There's not that many chasing. He's a strong boy, even though the boy from Zimbabwe is not that strong by the physique of him. He's probably a good hill climber, but he hasn't got the strength of Wallace. It would be interesting if they could get away, but again, there's nobody came out after them. And the Kiwis are controlling the front of the bunch there. There's 2 on the front of the bunch, and they are controlling it from the front.
34 laps to go in the 48-lap race.
This is the only distance event in the Commonwealth Games program.
On the track.
Yeah, what we call distance. You have 4,000 metres. That's probably the other, long distance. But this
Middle
is 10
distance,
miles.
yeah.
And it's good. It actually is a real good race when you get everybody riding around and darting away, and towards the end it really hots up and you can see some real thrills.
David Miller of Scotland has taken the pace quite a few times, and he led out then, leaving a gap for his teammate David Whitehall. And this is now Whitehall of Scotland.
No Australians.
Here comes Kevin Nichols. They're not going to let these fellas get too far. Kevin swings up.
Leonard Kirk of Northern Ireland up towards the front again. Number 72 for New Zealand, Craig Adair, who now goes to the front, and he won the gold medal in the time trial on the first night on the track.
This is looking a little bit dangerous. Gaps are starting to appear in the field, the main field. And if these boys can keep the pressure up, there's 3 chasing them, and there's a big gap back to the main field. It depends if they all give a yell and everybody gets in. There's 1 Australian, 2 Kiwis. They should go on with it. 3 Kiwis.
This is how the breaks eventuate. People going all the time, just not easing up. Everybody looking at everybody. There we have a New Zealand out there now.
That's David Whitehall of Scotland leading them out, and third on that bunch is Gary Hines of the Isle of Man. The Isle of Man probably better known for bikes that have engines.
This is dangerous again because there's a New Zealander out there and there's a New Zealander on the front of the bunch, slowing them down a little bit, and it's a Scottish boy on the front of the bunch. Now there's 2 Canadians lapping out very slowly. What's got to happen now is the English have got to get 1 boy out there, and the Australians must get. They've got nearly the length of the straight, these 3 fellows.
Here comes Michael Turter from the back now. He's moving up. He's going to try and bridge that gap. Curran from England swings high.
David Whitehall of Scotland leads the breakaway threesome. With him is Graham Miller and Gary Hines of the Isle of Man. They've got a break of about 30 metres. But now Michael Turter leads the rest of the bunch and closing the gap.
Just looking at the race so far, I'm going to go for Gary Hammond. He's looking after himself in the bunch, tucking himself away, and the other 2 Australians, Kevin Nichols and Michael Turter, bridging the gaps. But once again, Gary's well back in the bunch there, and he can't afford to let that gap eventuate. Here goes Paul Curran, now the English rider, breaking away. That's him there.
They're keeping the pressure on.
And Gary Sutton's tip, Gary Hammond, is 5th last at the moment with a big pack in front of him and just working up on the inside.
See, there's a New Zealand rider in the front of the main bunch. They're all swinging up, and nobody really wants to go on with it. Here we go, Curran. He's the English 50-kilometre champion, so he wants to really turn it on.
We're approaching the half race distance. 25 laps to go when they come over the start-finish line this time. 1 more lap would make it exactly half distance.
This is starting to look very, very dangerous. David Weller is at the front of the bunch. Now, he's a sprinter, so that's going to take a lot out of him before the finish.
And the boy with Curran out the front there is from Wales. He's in the race by himself, Peter Hamilton, so nobody's going to chase him or nobody's going to block for him. So that, for the English boy Curran, it's starting to look a little bit dangerous. Turter's right there with them.
And Peter Hamilton, the Welshman, he's 6'5" as he now takes over the lead. Don't often see a man that tall, do you, Gordon?
Not in cycling. They're usually got Dutch disease, short legs.
like the 2 guys with me.
Well, there's some gaps starting to eventuate now. Incidentally, my tip, Gary Hammond, just bridged that gap very, very quickly. I hope it didn't take too much out of him.
Are you?
No, I'm not, no.
There's 9 in the main bunch, and Hammond is sitting back in about 7th place.
There's Hamilton on the front now. Peter Hamilton from Wales, 6'5". The pacers come right off the race. They're rolling around, probably catching their breath a little bit because there's 21 laps to go, and they're starting to get down to the business end of the race. A lot of these feints and attacks at the start. Hammond's on the front there, swinging up with a New Zealander behind him.
Kevin Nichols just coming underneath now, just looking up at Hammond.
So Hammond didn't take the pace for very long.
No, very short. Looking after himself.
Saving the lungs.
And the legs.
Sean Wallace of England leads and now swings up the track. And there's Hamilton again. He's led 3 times in the last 5 laps.
Well, he's on his own in there, so I suppose he's got no teammates to keep him company, so he's best out the front.
The speed's dropped off a little bit now.
Yeah.
Everybody's sort of looking at everybody as they come down with 20 laps to go. So
Well, they've tested one another out, and there was really no strength asserted. Nobody could get away. All the pursuiters, all the strong men had a go. We had Wallace, we had the Scotch boy, Whitehall having a go. He's had another go.
And this is Whitehall going again, and nobody's going with him. So David Whitehall of Scotland is taking it out on his own.
Here comes Paul Curran from England. He's going right around the outside. He's going to bridge that gap.
And the other Scottish rider, David Miller, tucks in behind the Englishman. Well, he got a break of only about 30 or 40 metres on them. And that'll be bridged pretty soon. 18 laps to go, 30 gone, 18 to go.
He's tried hard to get away, the Scotch boy. He's put up a good ride. Still putting up a good ride. And there's another Scotch boy on the front of the bunch defending, or blocking as we call it.
Here comes Sean Wallace, the individual pursuer now. He's going to have a bit of a go right round the outside. He's going to bridge the gap very quickly. And this could look dangerous. If he goes on with this could be very, very dangerous, especially with the teamwork involved.
Here comes the Australians.
And two of the Australians are in this bunch, out to catch the leading two.
This could be the Scottish. There's an Englishman, Whitehall, and Wallace out in the front there. Two Australians are coming up with Alex Steeder of Canada. The Jamaicans are chasing. So they have to get somebody up there. Must get somebody up there.
The Australians in that leading bunch are Kevin Nichols and Michael Turter, but the Jamaicans, led by Weller, have brought them right up.
Weller did a lung buster of a turn there. I thought he was going to save himself for the sprint, but he was serious to get back with that break. He thought that was dangerous.
And that's about his third big turn of the night too. Each time it's looked real dangerous. He's bridged the gap, and that, you know, that's going to take a lot out of him for the finish.
How many turns he got in him?
I don't think he's got too many, Gordon.
The leader right now, Michael Turter, he just swings up the track. He's already won 2 gold medals.
There's Weller in the centre of the screen there. The Zimbabwe boy.
That's Leonard Kirk, and he's taken about 4 turns at leading.
Steeder from Canada, is it?
Steeder.
Steeder, I'm sorry, around the outside.
And the New Zealander is Graham Miller. Miller leads from Steeder. Kirk settles in behind them in 3rd place, and they've got a break of about 30 metres on the rest. But the rest coming again, led by Gavin Young of Zimbabwe, and also with them, Paul Curran of England.
This could be dangerous.
The 3 Australians are actually down towards the back of the field. Most of the favoured riders are down towards the back of the field. They're a little bit higgledy-piggledy out the front there. They haven't teamed together yet, but once they get together, these 4 which are getting together now, you'll see the other rider coming up just behind him in a moment. They've got a third of a lap.
See, that's Stephen Bauer out there, the Canadian.
He's tough.
This is dangerous. Paul Curran, the English rider. Here comes the Australians, a great roar from the crowd, but by jolly, they've got a big gap there to fill.
The Northern Ireland boy there.
Into the last quarter of the race with 12 laps to go. And the Australians, Turter and Hammond, are leading the chasing bunch. Just 4 out in front, about a 40-metre gap with the Australians leading the chasing bunch, and they'll catch them probably within this lap.
Turter, you'll see him coming up there. Turter did over a lap, flat out to get Hammond up there with the leaders. The field is broken into 2 separate groups. Oh, underneath. You can't do that, sonny boy. Apparently can.
Now, this is Alex Steeder. So there are 3 Canadians in this leading bunch, and Steeder's gone for broke.
And there's Gary Hammond after him. So whether they'll go on with it, I don't know. They're spread out everywhere at the moment. New Zealand fighting hard to get up there with Steeder and Hammond.
There's a lot of favoured riders out the back at the moment.
Terry Tinsley well back in the right at the tail of the field.
And there's 3 riders have a big break on the field. It's Steeder, Hammond and Miller, the New Zealander.
Hammond won't go on with it. Hammond could have taken the advantage there and gone on with it, but Hammond's the Australian in the centre there. He's quite happy to sit for a sprint finish, I think. Turner's on the front there, followed by Peter Aldridge from Jamaica.
Kevin Nichols now, he's going to put in his attack. High on the track, no, followed up. Nobody wants to go on with it at all.
Well, I think they've all made certain agreements and they're trying to stick with it.
It would appear as though, Gary, your prediction about Gary Hammond may be true. He didn't take on the pace.
Well,
and Kevin Nichols has come out to do a bit of the work for him.
Yeah, he's just sort of keeping an eye on things, but at the same time, it's starting to look very dangerous for Hammond.
Scotch boy around the outside there. David Whitehall. He's put up a good ride, strong, attacked and attacked.
Nichols has performed brilliant tonight in the team's pursuit, and honestly, this is his type of bike race. If they go on with it from there, it's all over.
Well, they're running out of laps. 6 laps to go now, and these 3 have a break of about 70 metres on the rest of the field. Gavin Young of Zimbabwe leads the rest of the pack, now goes up, but gee whiz, the margin is still pretty big as this breakaway group.
They're going for broke.
It's Kevin Nichols and the Jamaican Peter Aldridge and the Scotsman David Whitehall, who's taken lots of turns at the pace, and Whitehall now takes over in front.
They've got a decent break. They'd have a third of the lap at the moment.
Canada are underneath, and he goes out of the main bunch. Nichols, he's pouring on the pressure also out there in front. He can see that he's got a good chance of winning a 2nd gold medal.
These 3 tough fellows here. They're all road riders.
There's still a big gap there.
And chasing them for England is Sean Wallace, but the margin is still a good 50 to 60 metres with these 3 in front. 3.5 laps to go in the 10-mile. It was a 40-lap race, and we have a breakaway with 3 riders out in front. David Whitehall of Scotland. Going with them, Peter Aldridge of Jamaica, and also the Australian Kevin Nichols.
They're starting to get organised back in the field. They're into their little groups. Everybody's teaming up, so you can expect a big charge.
Here comes the English now, around the outside.
Peter Aldridge from Jamaica hits the front. He's got his head down there, trying as hard as he can, but he's starting to weaken a little bit, I think, because the boys have done a lot of work out the front.
And the Englishman giving chase is Paul Curran. He's reduced that 50 or 60 metre margin to about 40 now.
Michael Turner.
I think the 3 in the front haven't got the legs with a lap and a half to go. And the 2 Australians are coming around the outside of the main bunch. It looks as though Kevin Nichols has done a great job for his teammates as it's Turner and Hammond joining in. Turner number 12 sweeps around them. Just behind them, Gary Hammond. It could be Australia 1, 2, 3. The Canadian is staying with them. That's Bauer. Australia 1, 2, 3 at the moment. What a fantastic bike race. Still in front is Kevin Nichols
to win.
Nichols to win. The Canadian picking up distance
Nichols
on the inside. Kevin Nichols goes across to win. Gary Hammond 2nd. And the Canadian may have taken 3rd place on the inside. What a ride by Kevin Nichols.
Unbelievable. He was out there for 7 laps.
With 1 to go, he picked the pace up there and sprinted with the best of them.
Look at this, all arms in the air, the whole 3 of the Australians absolutely thrilled. Look at, there's Gary Hammond on the screen there. What a brilliant ride by Nichols. He's all ready tonight.
Magnificent bike race. And the Canadian just could have stopped the 1, 2, 3 finish for Australia. Stephen Bauer may have got the bronze. It looks like Kevin Nichols has been the winner and Gary Hammond the silver.
1, 2, 3. That I don't know when that's been done before in 10 miles.
And a standing ovation from this pro-Australian crowd. And what a performance by all 3 Australians, but Kevin Nichols spectacular, taking on the pace and maintaining it.
He wanted to win it. There's nothing more sure than that. He went away with the boy from Scotland and the boy from Jamaica, and they powered on the power. And there was 1 to go. The other 2 faded, and he picked up the pace and sprinted.
So here's the finish now, with Kevin Nichols of Australia leading. Throwing out the challenge, Gary Hammond on the outside. The Canadian on the inside. Oh, I think it is 1, 2, 3 for Australia.
1, 2, 3 for sure.
A magnificent performance. They came all over the top of Stephen Bauer, the Canadian on the inside, streeted the rest of the field, and the time for Kevin Nichols is 19 minutes, 56.55 seconds, which is a new Commonwealth Games record. 1, 2, 3 for Australia. Well, doesn't that cap it off?
Gee, what a great effort.
This would be a best performed track team since 1962 in Perth, where we won all medals on the track. We've won everyone except one here, gold medals that is.
So Kevin Nichols gets his second gold medal of the night. He was a member of the team's pursuit, retaining the gold medal that he won in Edmonton 4 years ago. So now Nichols is a triple Commonwealth Games gold medalist. Silver to Gary Hammond and bronze to Michael Turter. Well, I suppose that's not bad because he's already got 2 gold medals.
Well, gee, at 5 laps to go, I thought, no way this, Kevin Nichols would stay out there. And
they look as though they were folding. There he is.
There he look, arms in the air. I think he's in a state of shock at the moment. He can't believe it himself. And
well, the Australian team has performed fantastic over the track carnival.
He's gone 9 seconds inside the game's record held by Jocelyn Lovell, the Canadian.
Isn't that good luck?
Under 20 minutes. Lovell's time in Edmonton was 20 minutes 5.81, and Nichols has done 19 minutes 56.55 in a clean sweep 1-2-3 for Australia. Well, Gary Hammond, who went after them with about a lap to go, couldn't quite get there, but a fine performance for a silver medal from one of the famous Hammonds from Melbourne.
The winner of the bronze medal for the 10-mile is Michael Turter of Australia.
And what a Commonwealth Games it's been for Michael Turter. Gold medal in the individual pursuit, gold medal in the team's pursuit, and now bronze in the 10-mile. One, two, three for Australia. A Commonwealth Games record time for Kevin Nichols. All up, it's his 3rd gold medal in the Games, having won one in Edmonton 78. Australia, and all 3, in fact, Nichols, Hammond and Turter, bringing to a great climax the track cycling at these 12th Commonwealth Games. There have been 6 events in cycling to date. Australia, 4 gold medals, 3 silver and 1 bronze, including that clean sweep in the 10 miles. Australia only started with 3 riders and they all got a place. Only one cycling event left, and that's on the last day of competition, the road race on Saturday morning. But it's joyous scenes leaving the velodrome now as we take you back to Peter Mears.